Welcome to the ARCTISEN Final seminar, Reflection and Future Trends in Arctic Tourism. We're sending today's event from snowy Rovaniemi here in Finland. And participants are joining us virtually from all around the world. New Zealand, Switzerland, Italy, United States, Poland, Russia, Chile, and lots more. And also some moms and dads. Say hi in the chat, everybody, not only moms and dads. Please do that. And my name is Emily Höckert, and I come from the University of Lapland here in Rovaniemi.
My name is Randy, and I'm part of the Arctic University in Norway.
And my name is Elsbeth, and I'm working for the Aalborg University and UMU University. And before going into details about today's program, we first want to give the floor to Monica Lütje, the ARCTISEN leader, to give some words of welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to see that you are so many here today. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Monica, for these welcoming words. Now let's move over to the practicalities of today. First of all, we want to inform you that this event will be recorded and publicly available online afterwards, so you can share it with others who could not join today, or you can watch it yourself. Today's program consists of three parts. The first part, we will reflect on what the ARCTISEN project has achieved in the past years, and we'll take you through the ARCTISEN toolkits. The second part consists of three special guests who will reflect on future trends and visions in Arctic tourism. And at the end, we'll get a small preview of ARCTISEN's afterlife. And then it's time to close and celebrate the project.
Yes, and throughout today's gathering, we'll also be showing pictures of the ARCTISEN journey. And thank you for sending your pictures and co-creating this event. And it's really nice to see so many familiar faces.
So during the seminar, we will have breaks of around 10 minutes each. During the breaks, you can enjoy art exhibitions from the Arctic artists. When you have comments and questions, please use the chat and the raise your hand function. I think now we have all the house rules covered, so let's get started. First, we want to show you a video that summarizes the last 3 years of the ARCTISEN project. Enjoy.
Now I will present you more in detail the toolkits you saw on the video already. And as you see here, we have, this is the premiere of the toolkits now, that they are first time like public now. And we have collected all the tools and materials we have produced in the ARCTISEN project during the 3 years now in these toolkits. We have 3 toolkits. There is the first one here. I will show you the content a bit later. There's a toolkit 1, which is for understanding what cultural sensitivity means in tourism, and particularly in Arctic tourism. Then we have the second toolkit. It's all on the same website, and this will be available after the project at least for 5 years, hopefully also longer. The second toolkit is especially for developing culturally sensitive tourism products and business innovation. And then we have created a third toolkit, which is more like for people who wish to plan or implement a transnational project, some inspiration from lessons learned in our project, and some basic materials that can be useful when planning new projects. So I will go first back to the first toolkit and show you a little bit more in detail the content here. So we have here our free online courses, which you maybe already know. And we published the first course in spring, in March, Cultural Sensitivity and Arctic Tourism. It's a free online course you can study on your own pace. And it's especially targeted for tourism entrepreneurs and their employees, also for tourism students and people working in DMOs, but also for policymakers, tourism developers and planners. And there you get a very versatile basic understanding of what is cultural sensitivity in Arctic tourism business. Now we have launched in September a second course, Research on Culturally Sensitive Tourism in the Arctic, which gives a more in-depth and theoretical understanding of cultural sensitivity in Arctic tourism. And it's also targeted for tourism companies, students, and everyone else also working with tourism. And a new thing also for both courses is that there's a dictionary so that you can check the more difficult terms, that what they mean. And both courses are self-study courses that you can study whenever you feel like and stop where you want to and continue another time. So then I'm not showing everything here, but you can then explore yourselves more. I will show our map of guidelines. So we have collected in this map, which is in a Prezi format, existing guidelines for sustainable, ethical and responsible tourism, and in Greenland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Canada, and then also global guidelines. And you can access those guidelines here. They serve as inspiration to get ideas how to develop culturally sensitive tourism. There were, to our knowledge, no prior guidelines for culturally sensitive tourism, particularly or specifically. So that's why we have collected these sustainable, responsible, and ethical tourism guidelines. And you can always here like click, and you can get open the guideline. It's either a link to a website like here, or then it's a PDF format guideline. So this is a very good tool. And then we have here also, like you see, we have videos, and I will show those a little bit later if we have time. And then we are having a quiz for travelers. It's like a mini online course for travelers in a quiz format, and that's coming soon. We are still testing it before we publish it, but you will get it here within a couple of weeks. And then I will show something from the Second toolkit, as I told, there have not been previously any specific guidelines for culturally sensitive tourism. So we have created our guidelines and you can enter them here. It's in an interactive form here, but then you have also a printable PDF version I will show you now so that you get a better overview of it. So this is based on videos we have made for the first online course where tourism entrepreneurs explain how they in practice do culturally sensitive tourism business. And we noticed that there are similarities in their practices, and we made this map based on those similarities and practices. And there are many paths you can choose there to develop your own tourism business more culturally sensitive, but they are basically focusing or centering around cooperation with local communities and starting the tourism business development from local needs and wants. And then the other important thing is how to be authentic. And in this map, you get many tips how to do this in practice in your own business. And then we have here product cards to give you more ideas about how to develop new culturally sensitive tourism products. And this is now the first time ever we show this. This is brand new. And we have been working a lot with this the last weeks. And you have here 10 product cards suggesting products, ideas that you can develop as your own product that bring to tourists or travelers local everyday life, which is what is more and more interesting to tourists nowadays. And I can show you here one example how it looks like sauna. And you have here always like now I'm not able to scroll this from here. So a short explanation first. Why is this a good product idea and how to do it? Here you have some suggestions, group size, duration, availability. Most of the product ideas we have produced or co-created are all year round products, and a bit for whom this product could be and what is needed for it, what can be extras in the product to like tailor-made it or make it your own product. And then also some what to bear in mind and take into consideration, and some examples of marketing channels and some inspirations we have had for creating this product card. So there are links to companies with which we have been working together in the project. And then this benchmarking kit I want to show you. This is collecting in one place all benchmarking trips we have done. We did before the pandemic physical benchmarking trip to Greenland. And then during the pandemic, there was a local benchmarking trip in Finland for Finnish partners. But otherwise, our benchmarking trip, because of the pandemic, has been online. And here you have there's Norway, Finland, Sweden, Greenland, and Canada. And you have for each, you have like takeaways from the benchmarking trips, ideas how to develop culturally sensitive tourism business. And then you have also videos so that you can benchmark also at your own page whenever you want to. And actually, I have already suggested to one new company here in Finnish Lapland. It's just opening or starting construction work and planning its activities that they were quite interested to see this benchmarking kit and use it to see how things are done here in Finland. So here you have, for example, here you have the Finnish takeaways. And here you find also the videos we have used during the online benchmarking trip. Here's a little bit like memories from the trip and the program. And here you have the videos from the companies we have been benchmarking in video format. And actually these videos are based on the physical benchmarking trip we did in Finland. And you have the similar type of for every country. And then I will go back a little bit up and show here something still. So maybe you already know our baseline reports we did at the beginning of the project. So they have been quite popular and they describe opportunities and challenges of culturally sensitive tourism business in Finland, Sweden, Norway, Greenland, and Canada. And then we have a transnational like summary report also. And you have all those reports here as PDF reports, but also in Prezi format. So that is quite useful also if you want to present something about cultural sensitivity to others, like a teacher or in your company to your employees. So you can utilize these Prezi presentations also, so that it's less to read and more visual than the actual reports. And then here about the videos, what we have here collected. Now it's something wrong here. What does mean? Now it's opening. Takes a little bit time. Here you see we have here always it's explained what kind of video. There are some like animations and then also like real videos where you can learn about what does cultural sensitivity mean. Quite many videos here, and we have here also a video for tourists giving some instructions how to be a good guest in the Arctic. And it's also will be part of the online or the quiz for tourists. And then we have organized 2 international webinars, and you have also the recordings of the webinars here, both of them. The first one was in April, and the second one now in October. And then we have also here a PDF format basic presentation that can be like for own learning or used for teaching others what is cultural sensitivity in Arctic tourism and how it can be used as a tool for sustainable tourism development. And all these PDF formats you can, of course, download from here for yourself also. And here is research on culturally sensitive tourism. Here we have a list of publications. Here you have a list of all the publications we have published, academic publications during the project, and there will be more publications coming out after the project also. And you have always the abstract of the publication also. So those you have here, and also conference papers we have presented in different conferences. And here's also one conference presentation recording from Randy and Elsbeth. And here you find our papers also. And then we have the ARCTISEN blog, where we have about 30 writings about cultural sensitivity in Arctic tourism from different writers, not only as project partners, but also others. So this is like giving in an easy to read format more in-depth understanding of different issues in culturally sensitive tourism. I think I stop here. You just go and check yourself more. And you have in the chat also the link for the tweets. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Monica, for sharing the project outcomes. It's pretty impressive, right? We think so. Yeah, so another impressive thing we think is that ARCTISEN actually also made it to National Geographic. We think that's really cool. But now we're going to move on. Because, yeah, we want to share with you a special memory from one of the ARCTISEN benchmarking trips to Greenland, where several of the project partners and companies met. And it is Carina Ren who shared this picture with us. And she is associate professor at Aalborg University. And she's one of the main, Aalborg University is also one of the main project partners of ARCTISEN, and she co-arranged this trip. So we would now like to give the floor to you, Carina, and to start the ARCTISEN talk. And maybe you also want to say a little bit about this nice moment.
Yes, thank you so much, Elsbeth. Thank you, everyone. It's kind of a nice moment to be here and reflecting back on the years that we've been working on this project. And so we were asked to find a picture that encapsulated or reminded us of the ARCTISEN journey, if you will. And so the picture that you just saw before is a picture of Ailu and Chen, who met each other. We were traveling on, unfortunately, the first and last benchmark trip where we went to Sisimiut and Nuuk in Greenland. And during this benchmark trip, we had hired Chen, who is a young electronic musician, to play during a dinner. And during this very young, very emerging cultural performance, Ailu had this idea that it had a similar tune to his yoik. And so what happened was that after some rehearsal, quite spontaneous, the two actually co-performed both a traditional and emerging cultural performance, which I thought, as you can almost see it in the picture, was really moving, but also encapsulated what I think ARCTISEN tried to be about. I think it's about respectfully bringing together and share cultural skills, cultural traditions, practices, and also passion in Arctic tourism. And to bring together Sami, Inuit, and other Arctic cultures, young and old, traditional and emerging, to foster new tourism experiences. And I think that this encapsulated really well. So that was sort of my memory that I know I will keep with me for a really long time. But that was just my experience, and luckily we are many different partners in the project, and I'm fortunate to now have a good group of people who have willing to share their experiences. So we have, I'm just going to say your first names, and then you will, I hope, introduce yourselves when you have the chance. So Hilde, Charlotte, Brian, Kirsi, Aurélie, Nini, and Arvid will be sharing reflections on what we have learned in ARCTISEN, what has changed, and where we are going next. So I would like, it's a little bit difficult, of course, the format, because we are not physically together. You can, when asked, you can put your hand up, but I'm thinking perhaps we could also just open the mics and and share if we have some immediate ideas. As I just shared with you, this picture was about learning. I think for me personally, to coming to terms with what is cultural sensitivity. What does it mean to be culturally sensitive, and how do we think of it not only as something that is about fragility, but also about competences in tourism? And second, how do we translate that into products, or how do we act on it as a way of creating an experience or creating culturally sensitive tourism encounters? So I would like for those that feel like also sharing, what have you on a personal level, or looking at or your institution, or whoever you are representing, what has ARCTISEN sparked or made you think about? What have we learned? I don't know who would like to go first. And when you do go first, please remember to introduce yourself just with a sentence or two, so our audience know who you are. Yes,
Maybe I
Hilde.
can say a few words.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Kjell-Åke, please.
I'm Kjell-Åke. I'm the chair of the board of the local tourist organization, Destination Jokkmokk Economic Association. But when this project started, I was also the director of the IT Sami Museum here in Jokkmokk, close to the Arctic Circle. And it's been very inspiring in this project, because we recognize that we have common problems to handle, but we also can find common solutions and learn from each other. That is one experience that I see. Thank you for the moment.
And Hilde, you also had your hand up before.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, my name is Hilde Bjørkli. I work in Visit Northern Norway Tourist Board, and I've been also one of the main, or we have been one of the main partners in ARCTISEN. And I think that what we have learned is first and foremost about cultural sensitivity as a term. It was not something that I heard anyone talk about before this project. So I think that this project has sort of put the topic on the agenda. And we've also learned that, yes, we have a lot of equal challenges and opportunities, and that culturally sensitivities, it's easy to only kind of talk about indigenous cultures, but I think that it's not only relevant for indigenous cultures, but for all local cultures. And maybe the smaller the community is, the more important it is that tourism takes a sensible turn with regard to the local culture. So, so I think we need a knowledge-based development that really acknowledge the local inhabitants' role in touristic value co-creation, and that tourism destinations are not just a place to visit, but also somebody's home where they live. So I think we need to work both with the industry and the stakeholders, as well as with the guests. So we need to like work on both sides in order to develop this reflexivity that we are searching for. Thank you.
Yes. Indeed, in search of reflexivity. So I see here that we have common problems, but also common solutions, and that culturally sensitivity, which was perhaps not so much on the agenda in the Nordic Arctic, but has become so now. And so turning towards the West, Bruin, I would like maybe if you could introduce yourself and maybe say a little bit also about how this has looked from Canada, who has a different perhaps experience or tradition with cultural sensitivity. Have you learned something? Or was this old hat? Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, my name is Brian Grimwood. I'm a professor at the University of Waterloo in southwestern Ontario, Canada, so far removed from the Arctic, geographically distant. You know, the obvious thing we've learned is that in the context of a pandemic, it's very difficult to mobilize in-person relationships and even also how fragile tourism is, right? How tourism quickly doesn't matter to the global economy, or to the how quickly it fades off the agenda when health priorities take over. So, and I know that has there are consequences to individuals and communities and businesses in that context. So I think one of the things that I've learned in that regard over the duration of this this project is just how resilient communities and businesses are in the face of global crises that virtually shut down tourism operations and enterprises and visitor flows. So, but I guess the other thing too is that, you know, and I really appreciate how Karina framed the opening question here. It's not just about cultural sensitivity is not just about problems, but also about capacities, right? And there's a lot of capacities in the stories we tell. And Hilda, this is something that you've really encouraged among the network, is encouraging people to tell their stories and share their stories. And I noticed that quote came up in the video that Monica shared too, right? And people telling their stories of resilience, their stories of capacity, their stories of you know, place-based approaches to doing cultural sensitivity is something that I think we've really learned to mobilize around and anchor around it, right? So we're dealing with difference in language, in historical contexts, in how tourism matters differently to communities, the different types of Arctic tourism there. But within all that, we have this shared affinity, this shared capacity around connecting to the stories. And so that's something that I think has really stood out for me.
So even though tourism has shown itself to be quite fragile, as you say, and that COVID has really shown this, we're also within tourism finding some really powerful and strong stories to find strength in sharing those. And someone who I think personally brings some very interesting stories to the table is you, Nini, who here looks like your name is Karina, right? Because I shared my link with you. But Nini, could I ask you to introduce yourself and maybe also reflect, if you would like, so about how you use these stories, or the way that you think about cultural sensitivity in your practice?
Well, my name is Nini, and I own the store called By Heart, which is lying in Gangeslusa, Greenland. Right now I'm actually living in Norway. So I'm going there in the summertime, and then I'm in Norway in the wintertime. But yeah, I thought a lot when we did this. I think it's been quite a trip, because I do a lot of stories in my products. But what I realized during my trip is that I tell the story very much about the handicraft, the material, you know, the history, but not that much the people, because I'm a mix. So I'm half Greenlandic, I'm half Danish. So I've kind of been very touchy about, you know, the how do you say it, the indigenous people. I really wanted to tell the story, but then I ended up looking more into the handicraft, you know, the techniques that we have in our history and the material we use that we put into our story. And then I think with this project, when I joined this, I started to look more into the human parts. And I think when I definitely saw a lot of the stuff they did from the Nordic, I really find it beautiful because it was more the people that was in it, where I realized that for me, it was very much the material. It was very much the surroundings. I was very scared to actually, I don't think I ever wrote like Inuit in any of my products, even though it's a technique that's used in the Inuit countries. So for me, that's been quite an awareness through this. When you sent the questions and I started thinking, and I was like, oh, this really has been like boiling in the back of my head, that I've been a little bit scared to touch that area, even though I do it, but I do it from different angles in a way. So
yeah. And I think you're also touching upon this as not only just the usual tourism development project, that there are also a lot of emotions and feelings and stories and histories told and untold that are part of this whole scenario of ARCTISEN. Håkan, I was thinking maybe from a Swedish perspective, you are sitting in the University of UMU. I don't know if you can add something about how this has been experienced from your side. Are there in connection to what Nini was saying and others some new aspects that can add to the Swedish context?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure I'm able to answer precisely on that question, but I think what we heard so far, it's very rewarding, and I think I come to agree with what has been said very much about sharing experiences and so on. Let me take it like this. I was thinking about this project ARCTISEN. When I was introduced into this, I was a bit reluctant upon this concept of Arctic, but obviously Arctic is expanding in people's mind and so on. So I don't have any issues with belong to Arctic, even if I am maybe one of the southerners in a European perspective of Arctic. But what I think the Arctic in the ARCTISEN project highlight that we are belonging to something larger than what we see within our home countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Canada, and so on. So in that sense, I think, I think this project is very, very nice in that respect, that we actually come together and learn from each other. And yeah, obviously I start to accept it myself that also a place called Umeå is part of Arctic. I hope that answers somewhat to what you wanted or what you asked for, Carina.
Yes, and please do not feel that you have to answer exactly my questions. And I just want to thank you so much. And I just want to mention that Kirsi, it's not because I'm omitting you, but we already talked that you are from the Sami parliament in Finland, and that you would rather stick with some questions later on. But of course, if you have some additions, please feel free. This is just for the audience, so you don't think I'm neglecting anyone. Yeah, so I think there is something about this, like how is the Arctic a relevant component when we look at tourism development? And I think that you give some feedback about how there are these common problems and common solutions, and that a lot of it is partly about indigenous cultures and also the sensitivity around that, but also just the sizes and of small communities, and how to engage with the locality and local cultures in co-creation in a culturally sensitive way. And I think also on how this as some of you were going to, how there is a lot of power, that some transformative power in telling stories and sharing stories, but also because there is this this power, that it's also a balance, how to balance and bring stories into tourism in a careful way. So how would you say, all of you, how has ARCTISEN tried to add to this? Can you give some examples where you feel that ARCTISEN has enabled this, like bringing stories forward or sparking reflexivity? From my own side, I can say that I have a master student class about co-creating tourism encounters is the topic. And there we have tried out the online course where the students are asked explicitly to think about their own practices and the way that they think about this, which I feel as a teacher has brought them to reflect on this cultural sensitivity, not only being the tourist problem, that it's not only something that the others should be concerned about, that we should point to others and demand or plea for more cultural sensitivity, that we're all a part of tourism as hosts and guests and mediators working around this. And so it's also, while it's about teaching others, it's also about learning a lot ourselves. And so really co-creating the competences and the capacities. Do you, when you think about it, can you come up with some ways in which ARCTISEN has also prompted you to think differently, or that some change has happened? Brian.
Thanks, Karina. I'm going to build off your student example. So at the University of Waterloo, I've been teaching an undergraduate course on tourism analysis, and we use a book, hold it up here, it's probably backwards, Justice and Ethics in Tourism by Tazim Jamal. And in one of Tazim's chapters, she refers to the concept of culturally sensitive tourism, but she doesn't go in to explain it. And of course, tourism in the Arctic matters for geographic purposes, right? For the fact that there's a lot of smaller communities, there's a number of indigenous communities, indigenous cultures that are living and inhabiting the Arctic. But it's also like a really political place, right? With resource extraction intensifying, and resource development, resource exploration, but also climate change matters, right? And so tourism isn't removed from these broader contexts and these broader issues. And so one of the questions that I pose to my students after reading Tazim's chapter and engaging with some of the materials that we've generated through ARCTISEN and that are available online, several of these bits and pieces that Monica reviewed in her overview of these toolkits. Students are tasked with this question of what is culturally sensitive tourism and how do they conceptualize that into a conceptual map, into an image that they can represent and communicate, and then to design some sort of product, tourism product that sort of represents that broader conception of tourism, you know, within the context of politics, within the context of climate change, within the context of, you know, cultural difference.
Thank you. Are there also other? Yes, Nini, please.
I think for me, it's much more on a personal level. So being an entrepreneur in Greenland, you're very much alone in the small society I lived in. And during this project, I definitely felt like, oh, I'm very much like other indigenous people. We are not really that alone. We have the same issues. We have you know, the same way of looking at things. And it was, for me, it was really, really nice to step into a big group where it wasn't the color of my hair or my eyes. It was actually issues in the culture I'm in or in the society I'm in, and there's a solution. So definitely through this, when we did the different things and I start looking into, oh, what is the story and how about our own story, I definitely found much more respect. But I also stopped looking at the fact, oh, I'm one of those half-breed. I used to call myself that. Now I notice that when I introduce myself to people, I'm saying, I'm a mix. I'm half Danish, I'm half Greenlandic, and this is my story, and we work with this. And I don't feel like I have to excuse it anymore, actually. And that's definitely coming through this, because suddenly you're in a bigger group and you see that it's not just bound in Greenland and Denmark. And I think it's good. Conversation like this are really, really good to develop and get a positive tone and actually create something wonderful, because there is a lot of power in the small society and in indigenous people. They are very, very strong and very, very powerful. And they have a beautiful story. And sometimes I think we forget to focus on that. But with a product like this, you focused on all of that. At the same time, we could take all the bad feelings and talk about them in a good way.
Thank you so much for sharing this. So this is an EU project, and in the project description, it says a lot about capacity building, which I think in some context sounds very, very boring and very, very technical. But I think in your story, you are actually, I think, reminding us or illustrating that capacity building is not just a technocrat, fancy word, but actually really is about that, or has to be about that, about, as you're saying, not feeling that you're doing this alone, that working in the tourism industry is not only a lonely endeavor, but something you can do together with others or learn from others, and where you have viewpoints or perspectives or common histories that you can share and build on. So I think that this is just very, very nice to hear. Hilde, from the DMO perspective, would you say that there's also been some interesting or emerging or sort of unforeseen consequences or issues of capacity building or other things that you can point to?
Well, sustainability is increasingly on the agenda for the DMOs. We are working a lot with sustainability, and what we see is that environmental sustainability has been very much in focus, and now we experience that we also need to take into consideration the social sustainability. So I'm not sure if I can say that it has changed so far because of ARCTISEN, but of course it's increasingly on the agenda. And I think that ARCTISEN has done a wonderful job in creating the basic toolkits and a lot of material that can be elaborated further. So, and maybe I'm jumping to the next question of yours, but yeah. I think it's important that we don't stop here, because we have kind of like just created the foundation or built the foundational ground, and then we need to build further on the house of cultural sensitivity, which I think, especially for the DMOs in the Arctic, is important, because we deal with this indigeneity but we also deal with small society in scarcely populated areas and communities that are fragile in the way that more people are moving from than to. And so we need to build also strong communities and use tourism in the best way we can in order to use tourism as a tool for community building. And there I think cultural sensitivity is increasingly important.
Yes. Shiloke, do you recognize this also in your community, also looking at the business community and as well as the local community? Would you say that this is also something that has become more obvious from where you're seeing it?
Yes, I think I can say so. However, here in Jokkmokk, we have been working with these questions for a long time, although we had another terminology. So we have a great awareness of this, and I think also it has increased during the last years. And then I would like to take up an important questions wish for the future. During one of our benchmarkings, our webinar, we were discussing questions of the need of guidelines for tourism in indigenous areas. In Sweden, we had the system Sápmi Experience. However, it stopped because in lack of financiations. So then during this meeting, we discussed the need for a revitalized certification or guideline system. And we were also impressed from the guidelines from the Finnish Sami parliament. So that's a hope for the future that we can manage to work out a common system, common certification or guideline system for at least for the Nordic countries. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, thinking about how can we not only learn from each other, but perhaps even collaborate and develop joint guidelines or joint initiatives across national borders. And so I don't know, maybe now we are kind of going into the future now, thinking about. So, I mean, that's the problem, but maybe also a good thing about projects such as these, that you have a very intensive timeline. You work for a number of years with something very intensely, really digging into a lot of things, which I think we have done both conceptually. What is culturally sensitivity in tourism? Why do we need it? What does it do? How is it important? Operationalizing, how can we create products, how can we raise awareness, digital tools and so on. But of course, what's interesting and important is also when the project stops, what happens next? And Hilde was already saying, well, now we're starting to talk more about cultural sustainability, social sustainability. Shiloke, you're also saying, well, we've talked about it before. We will continue to talk about it. So this is not unique, but it's a part of an important and necessary ongoing conversation and work. So going into the future, I would like to ask you, Kirsi, what is, if you could just introduce yourself first, how does it look from the perspective of the Finnish Sami Parliament?
Thank you so much, and good morning to Canada and good afternoon to rest of the Arctic. So my name is Kirsi Suomi and I work at the Sami Parliament in Finland as a coordinator for Sami tourism projects. We just about to finish the 5th one, which is on the code of conduct for visitors. But actually then we are launching, hopefully at the beginning of 2022, kind of like what Kjell-Åke mentioned already, that certification system, which we started in Finland because we received only 200,000 euros from the Ministry of Education and Culture in Finland. So we have to start planning like broader fund base for the project to be able to develop it across the borders to Norway, Sweden and Russia as well for the common certification. But what I wanted to raise, this is not only a question of future, but this is what has not being paid so much attention to when consulting the communities and cultural knowledge providers. Because one of the key things, in my opinion, in culturally sensitive approach is to know who is the expert or specialist in the topic concerned. But however, a big challenge in consulting the cultural specialist is very often their lack of resources to provide the answers. Actually, there's one of the guidelines in that map of existing tourism guidelines in the Arctic, which ARCTISEN has produced. There's one global one for general advice, which is Indigenous people and the travel industry, global good practice guidelines. And this guideline includes many essential good advice, but not a single mention of resources needed for the culture bearers to provide the information. Hence, lack of resources to provide answers may become a burden for the community, and it may also lead to misinterpretation that a certain people, community, or interest groups were given an opportunity, but they did not use or want to use it, though quite often they did not have resources to answer or participate, or they were not given enough time to react. Constant requests burden and tire people who have no additional resources. And then, when important issues from the community's perspective need attention, people may already be tired of providing answers or to participate. Hence, we need to consider carefully what is important for the culture and community concerned. People also get frustrated by answering the same questions over and over again. The cultural specialists have all the alphabets of their field of expertise. However, they often first need to teach the outsiders the A, B, and C of their proficiency. And when they're ready to move on to D, E, and F, they need to return to start with the A again. Thus, one should do their homework on cultural basics using reliable sources before consulting the cultural knowledge providers. Hence, my hopes and wishes for the future are enough resources and time for cultural specialists to provide answers. Enough homework done beforehand, as well as serious consideration on how the community in question benefits from the study, research, etc., whatever is the question. And of course, mutual understanding, trust, respect, and ability to hear the message with an open mind, free of preconceptions. Thank you. A lot of big words.
Now is the time also. This is not the time for big words, when is? Thank you, Kirsi, and I think you're raising a really important issue that we've also discussed, like how do we avoid basically wasting the time of tourism entrepreneurs, and I think also other cultural knowledge brokers in a project with the risk of tiring people, of wasting people's time and so on, when there is, as you're saying, a lack of resources, a lack of time, a lack of hands, when people are busy with tending to their businesses and to their everyday lives. So I think this is definitely a risk that we find in tourism. It's a risk we find, I have to say, in research. And so thank you for addressing that. And I hope that tourism can increasingly become the home of cultural consultation, that tourism will not be, that will also be a place in which this cultural consultation can find a good place. do you agree, or do you have other comments related to what Kirsi was describing for us here? Is this something that you recognize? Yes, Hilde.
Yeah, I really agree with Kirsi here, and being the DMO partner here and representing the companies, it's been really difficult to get involvement and engagement from the companies, because they simply don't have the time to join our activities. And everything, it's too slow. The capacity building is kind of too slow. They cannot follow this research based process. However, when talking about this project, I think that we would have created a lot more engagement and involvement if we had managed to organize all the physical benchmarks. Because what we saw from the Greenland benchmarking, where we of course should have brought even more entrepreneurs and have had even more encounters between each other. But I think for those who participated, it was really an eye-opener, and we learned from each other, and we met on a kind of the same level. And so I think that if we had managed to do these benchmarking trips, we would also have received more engagement and involvement from the entrepreneurs. So for the future, I hope that we will be able to, or that someone will be able to take up the glove and use the material that has been created through ARCTISEN and present it or make it available for the entrepreneurs and also for the DMOs cross-border. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's safe to say that ARCTISEN hasn't solved anything. It hasn't come up with a solution, but it does, I hope, show that there are things that can be improved, and that there is capacity to be built by working together and sharing. So it's just a small part of a common journey. Yes, Nini.
I also definitely think that with a project like this, you give much more color into this subject. So like you said, I'm one of the entrepreneurs, and we constantly get asked, can you do this interview? Can you do this video? Can you answer these questions, this email, this meeting? And when you're a small family with small children and you have your own company, it can sometimes be very tough to, do everything. And all of the people you meet are so sweet, and you want to say, yes, 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 I can do this, yes. And in the end, you're so stressed. And then on the other side, like some of the questions that would be very nice for the people who come from outside before they do the interview. They have knowledge about the country they're coming to, or that indigenous people they're going to interview. Like the other day, I noticed there was a new program on the Danish channel about these two kind of famous people from Denmark traveling to Greenland, and they were sitting in a coffee house, and it was the same artist who answered the question, and it was the same questions I've heard for the last 10 years. And I was like just switching channels because I knew exactly what the program would be about, which is also a shame because there's so many different stories to tell. But I think, like Hilde said, this is different, the foundation of something different, and you put much more subject into the Arctic by doing this. And I think what you said, Kirsti, was wonderful written, really, really beautiful. I recognized a lot in it. It was really, really nice to hear.
Thank you. And I can see that we have Aurélie with us now here. So we've discussed already sort of the next steps. So where are we going with cultural sensitivity? With, as Nini and Kirsi are talking about, with cultural brokers, and how do we make good use and respectful use of the cultural knowledge in tourism? How do we expand the stories, the imagery that tourism is part of producing about the Arctic, about indigenous cultures, local cultures in small communities? If I can ask you maybe to comment on it, if you will, and before you do so, maybe also just introduce yourself so our listeners know who you are. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Karina. Can you hear me well? All right. So I'm Aurélie de Bucher. I'm the World Indigenous Tourism Alliance's Europe agent. I'm based in the French Alps, and I'm working for WINTA, mostly at the UN in Geneva. And I'm also a photographer and researcher in social science. So to answer and participate to the talk and answer a question, as I'm also an instructor in photography, it's sure that the imagery has a lot of importance, and we have to be very careful on how to use imagery regarding the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous people. And I think that both sides have to be educated. Indigenous people have to be fully informed on the consequences of the use of their images, and maybe also have a reflection on how do they want to be represented. What does it mean to be an indigenous person? Because we all have like both or maybe multiple identities, and we like also to be shown as modern people, but also with a traditional style as well, and we have to find a balance between the both. And it's important for the tour operator who are selling indigenous experiences to be taught also about the ethics in the use of photography, video, but also traditional music that comes from indigenous people, because the abusive relationship is very easy to organize. And so I'm really optimistic on bringing a more bringing more awareness through education, and it's a good way to maybe develop I would say previous educative system to tour operator and also indigenous local businesses as well, so the conversation is clear on how to use that imagery for a very good and authentic promotion.
Thank you, Aurélie. I can see that that we are coming to an end of the time, but I so wish that perhaps we could also have some comments or questions to our panel who have tried to reflect a little bit on why is cultural sensitivity important in the Arctic, especially. What has ARCTISEN perhaps done on a personal level for a DMO or a community, and where are we going next? So if you do have some reflections that you would like to share, some insights, perhaps if you've been following or working with ARCTISEN throughout these years, or if you are just a newcomer and interested in adding some comments or questions. Philip Gelder has a question. I don't know, Philip, would you like to? No. Okay, well, Philip.
Sure. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Karina. I was
No
just, I was about to write, but it got sent before I was done writing. Well, what I wanted to just point out, speaking of the cultural sensitivity and how the world perceives the subject of cultural sensitivity, I think we also have to focus on the part on the media part of it, and making media aware how to respectfully and curiously seek for the subject of cultural sensitivity in the world, because a lot of negative things have been shared in media, and of course media are spreading always negative and provoking controversial messages quicker than the positive ones. But I think there is a lot of things to do also about how do we communicate it to the outer world. And I think what I wanted to ask about is if ARCTISEN has plans like some kind of cooperations with media outlets, or try to contact media in the same way as the whole thought was about communicating it to the tourism operators. Thanks.
Thank you. I also just want to add very quickly that Philip, if you looked at the program, you know that you are head of digital at Visit Greenland, right? So I imagine that's also where the question is coming from. So have we planned? I mean, we haven't specifically planned anything, but I know, Hilde, that you've been very committed and very inspired also by other DMOs and also your own with working with I mean, also along with what Aurélie was saying, like how do you create other imagery, other stories, we could say, like visual stories, how to work with the digital storytelling, visual storytelling. And others, of course, also, if you feel that this is something
you want me to say something about it?
That if I understand you correctly,
Yeah,
Philip, like
we haven't been working on that specifically in the ARCTISEN project, but on the Visit Northern Norway part, we have been working a lot with a project that we call responsible marketing, where of course we have been working about our awareness of which pictures are we using, which stories are we telling. On one side, we have developed a guideline for which pictures should be used and not, and why. Because on the one side, we see that a lot of pictures are kind of encouraging to dangerous behavior, especially nature-based activities. On the other side, we see that marketing has a responsibility towards this stereotypical image of especially indigenous people, but also of local cultures. And we see that we kind of create a picture that is not really the truth. It's not really the true Northern Norway that we have been using. So lately we have become a lot more aware of which pictures are we using and what stories are they supposed to tell. And we have also been inspired a lot by other marketing companies like Visit Greenland and Visit Swedish Lapland and a lot of others.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. This concludes our time with reflecting on why and how ARCTISEN and where we are going next. And this will be elaborated even further in the next part, where we will have special guests telling us about future trends and trajectories. But thank you so much, panel, for taking time to share your thoughts and your reflections with us. I would say in particular, Nini also, as you were saying, as a small entrepreneur, taking time, being a valued collaborator in the project has been very important from all of you. So thank you so much from us, yes, let's see you out there.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you, our panelists. So now it's time for the first break, and we will meet again in 10 minutes. But before you go, during the break, we have the chance to enjoy the art by Elina Nygård from Jokkmokk. Elina, can you please tell us a bit about your wonderful work?
Thank you. I'm glad to see that screen picture, Emily's reindeer. Actually, that was a part of your journey. I don't know where you took the picture.
I took it in Jukkasjärvi in northern Sweden.
Yeah, and I saw it on Facebook as a marketing for the project and did a print out of it. So I called it Emily's reindeer, and it's nowadays on both postcards and some prints, original prints, and on mugs as well, and different places. This is a series of prints that I made with myths around, Sami myths around birds. So you have gotten 4 cards in your gift bag, and there are a total of 7 of them. So the first one you see is the Siberian tit, in Swedish lappmes. And in the myth, they say that this bird often lived close to where you lived. So when it made noises, you knew someone was going to pay you a visit. Yeah, you can show the next one. The cuckoo. So let's see where I got that one. There. This is quite a strange myth, actually. It's the cuckoo is a very shy bird. So if you wanted to, you could make a try to sneak close to the tree if you saw where it was sitting, and then try to tie your lasso around the tree without scaring the bird. And if it still was there when you did that, if you managed to tie the bird, tie the cuckoo, you would get like eternal luck and health and everything. The woodpecker. So where is it? This is the great spotted woodpecker on the print, and this is an even more strange myth, and that is, if you saw where the woodpecker had its nest with eggs in it, you could wait until the mother went outside and then put a plug in the hole so that she couldn't come in again. And when she came back, the woodpecker mother, she would take a straw from the ground and use it to take the plug away, and then just let go of the straw. And then you should take that straw, and it was a good luck straw. This is the Siberian jay, lavskrika. There are actually 2 different myths around this bird. When I did this research before I did the prints, I found lots of Sami myths around birds, but most of them are quite sad and they come with bad messengers. So I tried to choose the ones that had either happy messages or at least not the worst, because it often connected to death and stuff if a bird comes close to you. But the Siberian jay here in the Jokkmokk area where I am now, they actually thought that this bird came with death. And from the more northern parts of Sapmi. One story at least is that this was a really nice bird and a good friend. It was like an angel sent from God. So maybe you can see it's an angel inside of the bird, but maybe it goes for both of the stories. And the willow ptarmigan. This is a willow ptarmigan, but we have two different kinds. But I'm not sure in the myth if they tell a difference between the both of them. But actually, this bird could tell you the upcoming weather in the evening. If it made a lot of noise and running around, then you knew that it would be bad weather and stormy weather. But if it was quite calm and just making small sounds, then it would just snow a little bit and be quite calm weather. This is the newest one I made. It's the capercaillie, and it's not actually a myth. It's a storytelling about why the capercaillie has white feathers on its side. And it was from the beginning when the bird was created by God. It didn't have a female, and it fell in love with a female swan instead. And they had quite a nice time, I guess. But when the swan saw that he was eating bar, what's the name of that? Maybe you can see what he's eating from a pine. She thought he was disgusting and left him, but at least she left him with some white feathers to remember her from. This is the black-throated diver. And I guess this is quite a really old myth, because it says that if you had made an arrow from the beak of this bird, that arrow would always hit the target. So the myth probably is from the time when we used arrows to hunt with. Thank you for listening.
Wonderful. Yes, and the cards are so nice when you're actually holding them, and as you show, they're pretty big, and it's like, yeah, it's a wonderful gift to have. Many thanks. So now I think we're almost done with the break, right? So it's time to move on. Say hi to Jokkmokk, and we'll stay in contact. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this nice art exhibition of Elina, and stay put because more will come. We have now reached part 2, wherein 3 special guests will discuss future trends and visions in Arctic tourism. And first we would like to invite Alex McNeil. He is the Director of Expedition Experience and Innovation at Quark Expeditions, and he chairs the Community Engagement Committee of ICO, which is short for Association of Arctic Expedition Cruise Operators. Through his polar expeditions, Alex has developed a strong passion for the polar regions, the people living and working there, and he inspires people to travel responsibly to the Arctic and Antarctic. The floor is yours, Alex.
Hello, everyone. Good day, and greetings from Toronto. My computer has decided that it doesn't want to be friends with Zoom anymore, so I'm calling from my iPad. So I won't be on camera, but hopefully you can hear me. This is probably the most technologically advanced online conference that I've had. So I hope that my contribution can maintain these very high standards. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Well, it's a pleasure to be here to speak about my personal experience with community engagement as it relates to the expedition cruise industry. My name is Alex McNeil, and I'm here in Canada, and I've spent a lot of time throughout my life examining the role of being a visitor. I was born in England, spent my formative years in Canada, and have since lived and worked in Mexico, Argentina, Russia, and Western Australia. So I have what I consider to be a very privileged experience of not really calling anywhere home. I'm a global citizen. I don't feel a strong kind of hereditary attachment to any place, but I do have a deep respect for those who do. And so in my career in the expedition industry, which is now approaching 15 years, I've really taken it upon myself to consider my role as a visitor or as a guest. I think far too often in business, we can overlook these kind of basic human principles. And for example, as a visitor, one of your primary responsibilities, in my mind personally, is to ensure that you're invited to the place that you're visiting, that your hosts are actually excited to welcome you. The other part of being a good visitor is, I think, to contribute, to not just show up and take whatever it is that interests you, but to have some kind of contribution to make sure that your visit is meaningful. And the other kind of relatable behavior that I can touch upon is that whenever I'm a guest in someone's home, I would consider it, absolutely out of the question to speak on behalf of my host. When I'm, being hosted, it's definitely up to me to appreciate what hospitality has been afforded to me, and respect my role as a visitor. My professional roles, this was introduced, I'm the Director of Expedition Experience and Innovation at Quark Expeditions. We're one of the largest polar expedition cruise operators. And we've, although the recent times have been quite strange, we've just actually passed our 30th year of operations. In that role, I design all of our product portfolio, establish new partnerships, and imagine new ways for us to share the wonders of the polar regions with our clients. I'm also very privileged to be the chair of the Community Engagement Committee at AECO, and I'll be speaking a little bit more about my role there. And I'm the founder of a small not-for-profit association here in Canada, which focuses on community engagement in the Arctic. I spent the better part of 10 years as a guide exploring the Arctic before transitioning into my current management role. And I was very fortunate to visit well over 50 remote communities during my travels. And the interactions I had with these communities moved me more than any other experience I'd had in my life. And it's something that still motivates me in what I'm doing today. And so I feel like while the cultural element of the experiences we create are only one dimension of the product that we sell to our guests, to me, it's a very significant one that's very special in the Arctic. The hospitality of people who live in these remote places is unlike anything I've witnessed before, and something that I definitely don't take for granted. I'd like to speak a little bit about the expedition cruise industry overall and a bit about AECO's operations. And the expedition cruise industry is predominantly smaller vessels ranging from, let's say 200 people. I think there's a few vessels in the AECO fleet that are slightly above that, but going down to small sailing vessels. And so in total, the AECO fleet is approximately 60 vessels. And the map on top there is the map of operations of our company, Quark Expeditions. So you can see the kind of spread of the traveling, the voyages that we offer within our portfolio. This is a slide that I created to emphasize the potential that the AECO fleet has. As I mentioned, there's almost 60 vessels that come under the operations of AECO. And this is comparable to, you know, the naval fleets of many nations around the world. And so we have a great responsibility to reflect on our operations in the context that we can be a force for good, or we can have negative impacts on the places that we are visiting. AECO is an organization that's prided itself for many, many, many years on responsible tourism, on making sure that places that we visit are preserved and respected. And so for a large part of AECO's history, there's been a strong focus on safety and environmental sustainability. And in 2018, myself and a group of other stakeholders within the association called on the membership to put more energy towards the social sustainability of our operations, and asked for resources and for attention to be given more to the community engagement dimension. And I'm very pleased to report that of all the members, there was a near unanimous vote in favor of this proposal. And so currently, I'm very proud to be going to our having just concluded our third year of the operations of this committee. And on the committee, there's multiple operators from different companies who are otherwise, you know, staunch competitors in the field of our business, but in things related to all of the efforts of AECO, but especially community engagement. We see community engagement not as a competitive landscape, but a landscape where we can inspire one another, learn from our experience, and promote best practice. Our committee is motivated in a large part by these words by Talib Rafai, who was the former Secretary General of the United Nations Tourism Association. And you can see the words on the screen, which I think are quite powerful and honest. There's no future for travel and tourism if you're not welcome and embraced by the local community. One thing for our committee, which is very important, is that we do not represent communities. We look to provide a venue for communities to speak for themselves and for their opinions to be elevated and circulated throughout our industry, so that their opinions on our operations, their own experiences can be understood by the largest section of stakeholders. In the committee, we've developed a range of resources, and it's been fascinating to watch the growth of this initiative. And here's an example of 6 of the kind of objectives that we recommend to the membership of AECO to focus on. And this comparison hasn't been endorsed, but I like to look at this as similar to the UN sustainability goals, where efforts should be measured against these objectives. And maybe one day in the future, we'll have a system that's similar to that. And so over the past couple of years, in consultation with communities, we've developed a wide range of resources to help expedition operators on their own individual community engagement journey. Because ultimately, as a collective, we're the sum of all of the actions of our members. And so while we create resources and we provide guidance and we inspire each other, our success in this endeavor is the result of the individual actions of each of our operators. It's one thing to have strategies and documents and resources, but I'd like to spend the remaining portion of this presentation talking about how this can look, what expedition cruise community engagement can look like, and also share a few personal experiences. There's a wide range of realizations of this vision. Most of it goes back to the very simple principles that I was sharing of my own in the beginning. Listening to your hosts, understanding their perceptions of your activities, making sure you're invited, sharing feedback with each other, and ensuring mutual benefits. And mutual benefits can be interpreted as economic, and economic benefits are extremely important, especially in remote areas where employment opportunities can be minimal, but they're not the only dimension. Social benefits are also important in an area that we've been trying to focus on. And our missions is to provide more venues for community members to speak on behalf of themselves, whether through performance, whether through food, whether through storytelling, whether through coming on board of our vessels, whether through their art. So initiatives, one initiative that I'm trying to focus on is working with artists and creators to promote and license their content, especially documentary films, to expedition cruise operators, and to potentially even customize those the broadcast of those films on board with messages, you know, commissioning messages from the director or the actors who are in those films to share their perspectives on their content and on their communities with a targeted cruise audience. One of the elements of AECO's mission has been to create community-specific guidelines, and these are documents that are circulated throughout all operators to help inform their visit. And these guidelines are presented to not only the staff on board the vessels, but also the guests. And the guidelines can highlight points of interest in a community, but also direct guests to areas that the community would like for expedition cruise visitors to spend time in, such as local businesses who are well positioned to serve cruise visitors, but also indicate areas where the community would prefer to remain sacred and not become a tourist attraction. And one of the essential ingredients of this process is that these guidelines are authored by the communities, that AECO has created a format and shared a method to create consistency amongst these resources. But as Karina was saying, AECO and certainly myself really hope that in her words, that tourism can become the home of all consultation, or cultural consultation is what she said. And this is one step in us accomplishing that within the expedition cruise industry. We've also had initiatives such as job fairs in the guide pitch resource. You can see that we've hosted webinars to share knowledge from community members to operators, and we've had our long-awaited Iceland road trip, which was, I think, supposed to take place early in 2020, but for reasons I'm sure you all will understand, that's been postponed. And so we're looking forward to creating a delegation to travel around Iceland, visit small communities there who work with or want to work with expedition operators to help develop strategies to accomplish that. I have two personal stories from our activities at Quark Expeditions that touch on some of the objectives that I referred to. And this one relates to giving a platform to community members on community members' terms. You know, one opportunity that we like to provide is the opportunity for community members to apply to join our guide team, to be Zodiac drivers, you know, polar bear guards, lecturers, all sorts of employment pathways exist through our kind of traditional means. But those employment pathways have in my mind, limited the pool of candidates who can contribute. First of all, it's a requirement in order to be a guide that the candidate is English speaking. There's also a list of certifications that are required, as you can imagine, to be authorized to carry a firearm commercially or drive a small boat. And in many cases, that threshold, those requirements can limit the ability for community members to participate in our voyages. So a few years ago, we piloted what was called a community ambassador program. And we sent a representative from our company to the community of Idekatormiut in East Greenland in Scoresbysund to meet with the community, to present this idea, to get feedback, and also to invite community members to come on board our ship as solely representatives of that community. The fjord system of Scoresbysund is vast and a wonderful destination, but the community of Idekatormiut, which sits at the mouth of the fjord, is usually only a small part of the experience that people have in that area. And so we developed this community ambassador concept, and the concept was to dedicate 2 berths on board our ship that was operating in that area, and invite community members to come on board as paid representatives of the community, with the sole purpose of sharing in the experience of sailing around the fjord systems. There was no requirement that these candidates speak English. There was no requirement that they contribute in any technical function. There was no requirement that they present or speak publicly. There was no requirements really at all, other than that they come and participate. Of course, we welcomed any contributions that they were interested in, but this opportunity, I think, opened up a new perspective on contributions from community members, because we had a lot of interest in this, and we're able to get some great folks from the community on board. The individuals in this picture are Evald and Krula, who joined us, and they sailed around. I think they joined us for 2 voyages, each of which was about 7 to 10 days. And very quickly they became immersed in the experience. And while there was no requirement of them to contribute formally, they took it upon themselves to tell stories of their upbringing, much of which occurred outside of the settlement, and even at some sites that we visited on our excursions. And the ability for them to participate on their own terms created a really rich experience for our teams to learn from them, and also for our guests to be able to share such a special time with Evald and Krula. And so this was a successful initiative, which I'm excited to say we're looking forward to continuing to work with the community on, and hopefully to expanding slowly and sustainably to not just our own business, but to share this idea with other expedition operators who visit that region. The second experience was one, it's quite recent, and probably the largest community engagement experience our company, Cork Expeditions, has undertaken. And that was the development of a program in South Greenland. And the context for this was that we wanted to develop a community-focused product, but bring in community stakeholders into the planning process from the beginning, before this product even went to market. So we met with representatives from the local government. We established relationships with small local businesses and decided on what would be the best structure of the program together. And we ensured that a core component of this program was community involvement, from having community members on board the ship, to the places that we would visit, to the businesses that would benefit economically from our operations. And to the best of our knowledge, this was the first of its kind. And it's just been a really rewarding experience to be able to see this new approach to tourism development in the Arctic, starting with collaboration from the beginning. And we're looking forward to operating these voyages for the first time in 2022. I realize my time is coming to an end, so I'll wrap up. This is representing a collaboration that we had with the government of Nunavut, who set up what was originally called the Inuit Cruise Training Initiative. Now it's called Najunaisi, and it invites candidates from around Nunavut to join a training program to give them those core competencies that I was referring to earlier, to make them eligible to be expedition guides on board cruise ships. And from the industry side, this was an initiative that represented the strong and overwhelming desire for operators to engage on these sorts of programs, because there was 10 interns that came out of this program. And so we asked operators if they would be willing to offer placements for the interns for them to complete their training. And we were hoping that maybe we would get, 50, somewhere between 50% and 75% uptake, so we could place, 5 to 7 of these interns, and thought, that the likelihood that we would get 10 operators to take 10 interns, or whatever orientation of those numbers would be, was far-fetched. But we received well over the level of interest that would accommodate all of the interns. In fact, it was close to double. So this is another initiative that we're looking forward to supporting. To conclude, AECO as an association does a great job of bringing us together as otherwise competitive businesses. And in that, we form our own community of expedition operators. And as a community and sharing common values, we're able to interact productively with other stakeholders in our business ecosystem. The world has changed a lot, and I am really hopeful that when we return to operations next summer, that we're able to do so with a new mindset towards community engagement and a reinvigorated attitude towards the role that community stakeholders will play in our operations. I'm looking forward in my role at Cork and my role at AECO to supporting that initiative, to working with community members and to inspiring other operators to share their experience and to continue to have this community focus. So thank you very much for your time. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I really enjoyed your presentation, and I think many with me. Concerning time, we do not have it to discuss the questions right now, but we have some time at the end. So I hope Alex will still be with us, and if not, you can always post your questions right now in the chat, and we will save them for later on or discuss them in the discussion, as I said. So now we will go on with Philip, and I will invite Elsbeth to introduce him. Thank you.
It's time for Philip Gilda. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Philip is the head of digital at Visit Greenland, and he will be telling us more about the digital tourism in the Nordics platform. That is actually just like ARCTISEN, aiming to support and connect small tourism businesses. So Philip, please tell us more.
Thank you. Let me share the screen. Welcome everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm going to be representing our working group, which is called Digital Tourism in the Nordics. This is our project. And before we start, here you have also a QR code if you would like to connect with me or have some questions that you would like to ask, and there is no time for doing that now. My name is Philip and I work at Visit Greenland, as Elsbeth has mentioned, and I'm here today to quickly tell you about the project. And to start, I would like to say that this project is financed by the Nordic Council of Ministers, and we are 4 countries representing the project: the Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, and Finland. And the whole project, the idea behind the project was to increase the level of digital readiness in our countries. So by doing so, we had to define who will be our target group. And as we all gathered to discuss the difficulties that our tourism industry companies have. We defined that our target would be the small and medium-sized companies, as they have the most need to become more digital ready. And we started with identifying the need, and as we could quickly summarize, after making a lot of different surveys, we found out that the small and medium-sized companies have difficulties with areas such as marketing, and mostly because of the lack of resources and the difficulties with prioritizing, but also the difficulty with gathering the relevant content. So when we were in the process of trying to figure it out, what is it exactly that we would like to do with our platform, it was clear to us that this project would have to be all about inspiration as a part of e-learning, but we would also like people to connect, because there is nothing else than just the human touch and human interaction that can make you see everything what you're learning and everything what you're in doubt to understand in a totally different way. So our goal become building like living community within the tourism industry in our countries, in the Nordic countries, that we would like to in the beginning be a part of, and then hopefully take ourselves out of it and let the community live further without us having to give more directions for it. But that said, let's dive into what the digital tourism in the Nordic is and what is it all about. And to do that, we would have to investigate the three main points of our platform, which is the inspiration, the community, and the events. So the inspiration part is all about the subjects and the categories for the content that we are going to create or facilitate, which is research and publication, grants and funds, marketing, product development, travel tech, and all the other ones that you can see on the screen right now. And what we are going to do is to try to find all the relevant subjects that we can think of and start feeding the platform with the content that our companies, our local operators, but also the DMOs can benefit from. So the platform will be split into the three divisions. As you can see, that's how the inspirational part will look like, with the latest articles to start with from the top. And then you can also filter and sort the content accordingly to your need. The second part is the community part, which is very important for us because this is a community of people within the tourism industry, which is exclusive to the Nordic region. And I'm saying Nordic region, which is also inclusive for other countries that are not participating in the project as for now. And so if you are from Sweden or from other countries that we haven't mentioned, you're welcome also to contact us, but I'll talk about it later. So the community part is all about connecting the people with similar backgrounds and letting them communicate between each other and try to discuss the problems that they have, the difficulties that they face, but also the small wins. That said, if someone is working within tourism and perhaps working with the horse riding, we have identified, for example, the same category of profile in other countries, let's say Finland, Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland. So those people with the same background, working with the same thing, can talk to each other, can discuss the problems and comment on them. But because of the community being open to everyone in the industry, they will also have a possibility to interact with people who are coming from different backgrounds, who might have also some ideas. So this will also create a possibility for the community to create some kind of real life study cases which are based on the actual and factual problems that the tourism operators are facing within the tourism industry. And that said, we have the that's how the community part looks like. So you're creating a user account, and then you have notifications if you are active within the subject. And then you can filter by the topics, or you can create the post yourself and see the activity, either your activity or the last activity, or just browse through the attachments. So we try to create, by helping people create their accounts, we wanted to make it easy for people to gather the content, gather the information from the community part, or also events, and have personalized, custom accounts. The third element is the events, which is going to be a handy event calendar with the both digital and physical events, which could be the digital conferences as well as physical conferences, and everything that you as a tourism involved in someone involved in tourism can participate freely. So this will just gather the everything what is happening in the Nordic region, and it's open for everyone to add the events, which will be then moderated and put on the page. And this part will look like that, but it's also difficult for you probably to get a full grasp of how the platform looks like. So based on the free screenshots that I show you, so please let me show you the short introductory video of the platform, so you have a better idea. All right. Hopefully it helps you to get a better picture of what is that we've worked on. And now to the next steps. So currently our platform is being fed with all kind of content, because it's still in the stage where we are collecting the data. We're collecting the content that we would like to show to everyone who's interested in using our platform. And after that, we will start marketing the platform to the relevant stakeholders, which are the small and medium, but also the big size of the tourism operators, and also the destination management organizations. And then we have this sustainable approach to building and managing the community. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's all about creating the community that we can start and we can kickstart, and then letting you, the users, to drive the community and make it as a tool that you can use for in a most useful possible way. As a part of our project, we also decided to do some kind of happening, which is like the podcast event. And to tell you a little bit more about, I would like to show this small diagram. So we would like to initiate an event where we would like to invite a person with a background within the same category as other persons that we're inviting. Let's say that this is a hotel manager. We'd like to invite hotel manager from Faroe Islands, Greenland, Iceland, and Finland, and get them into a room. And by inviting them into the same room, we would like to moderate the talk between them, to make them talk about what is going well, what is not going well, and so what are the obstacles, what are the best practices, how they can basically learn about each other's difficulties, and maybe some inspirations on know-hows from their job. So this kind of event, as a first part of the process, this will be a live event that will be possible to probably stream as well. And then once we have it, once we recorded it, we're going to put it as a podcast, which will be transcribed and put on our platform under the inspiration, where we will supplement it with all the relevant links and documents. And then we will try to engage the community to talk about what they've heard in it. We know that 4 persons gathered in one room might be not the best example of what the whole like the community of hotel managers is all about. But then again, we would like to kickstart the conversation and let the community to discuss it and be a part of the subject. And the next step are the partnerships. And here we have collaborations with educational institutions. We started the dialogue with Aalborg University and the project ARCTISEN for some time ago, because we were also very interested in the subjects of cultural sensitivity. And we discussed the opportunities, and we would be really interested in making it possible for the project to be even more visible by using the content and the toolkits that ARCTISEN has prepared on our platform, and introducing the ARCTISEN as a project that will help the tourism operators to understand the subject of how to work respectfully and curiously about the cultural sensitivity. And this is also especially interesting for us from the digital perspective, because a lot of operators are also using the digital media in order to either promote or get visible digitally with their products and with their projects and collaborations and everything. So we would like to make them aware that this is an important subject that needs some visibility. And other than that, we are thinking about contacting also tech partners such as Google or Lenovo, IBM, and getting them into helping us facilitate some of the gaps within the inspirational part that we might have not covered, and they have an experience with that. We're also open for cooperation with other tourism organizations and students, because we see students as a big part of our platform that can also benefit greatly of recognizing the troubles and the problems that tourism industry is struggling with, and helping them by either writing some of the theses or some of the problem statements based on the case studies that they have seen in our community part of the project. All right, I think that was mostly what I wanted to communicate about the project. And if you're, once again, if you're one of the other countries that we haven't mentioned, but still within the Nordic region, please get in touch with us and let's discuss the opportunities and working together. Otherwise, see you on the ttnordics.com. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Philip. We're really looking forward to working with you in the future. or in the future, quite the near future, actually. We have a question from Karin Fallman, Steenlund. Why is Sweden not in this partnership? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the whole project was actually originally between the three countries, Greenland, Faroe Islands, and Iceland, as a base based from Nordic Council of Ministers, and then we extended. No, actually, it was Iceland, Greenland, and Finland. That was at the beginning as a requirement from the Nordic Council of Ministers, and we started extending our scope and trying to be more inclusive for other countries. So as soon as Faroe Islands has shown the interest in the project, they become a part of it, and we are still open for getting Sweden on board if someone will show some interest in the project.
Thank you, Philip. If there are any other questions, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, I would like to ask you, Philip. So we have been talking about working together with the ARCTISEN content about cultural sensitivity, and it's very much in the starting phase. But how do you think that cultural sensitivity content will contribute to your platform?
Cultural sensitivity is very important for our Arctic region. And everyone within our working groups, working countries here in the project has shown the interest in the cultural aspect of it, and this is very important for everyone doing all kind of marketing, also within the scope of selling tourism products, or creating even product development. A lot of our operators expressed interest for how they can do it respectfully, and I think this is exactly the type of content that we would like to introduce to people, to have some kind of framework for both product development and for the marketing.
Yes, thank you. I can see that Karina and Hilde also has their hands up. Because of time, I think, Karina, can you ask your question, and maybe Hilde, you can save your question till the end. Thank you.
I think the devil's advocate question, this is also something that we've been struggling with or talked a lot about in ARCTISEN, about building the community. Like, how do you make this a preferred platform, a preferred go-to place where the companies will seek information and post and share?
Yes. This is also something that we've been discussing as one of the most important things, how we can make people use the platform. And I think the element of having the digital notebook where people can gather information about something that they want to learn about and then discuss it within the community, and then also having physical events, as we planned that our DT Nordics project would in the future include also physical events where people can come and meet each other, and all this should be free from advertising. So the pure focus on the tourism industry and the lack of advertising on the platform is something that a lot of tourism operators that we have interviewed expressed their interest in, as a part of the digital universe where they can get the information and they can get in touch with other tourism operators. So we will focus greatly on marketing the platform and making it visible and exclusive for the need that I presented during the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you for all the questions. We're going to move on to the last speaker in this round, and that is Aurélie de Bucher. She is a Europe agent at World Indigenous Tourism Alliance, one of our valued project partners. And she will be telling us about, she was sharing her visions on future tourism development through a spiritual relationship with the land. So Aurélie, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I wanted to thank the ARCTISEN team for the invitation. It has been a very pleasant collaboration together. So thank you very much for the invitation. So today I would like to contribute through my researcher's eyes in giving a special focus to the topic of reimagining relationships with the land through indigenous knowledge in tourism, which is to me the most significant perspective and role of indigenous tourism in the future. To begin, I really wanted to invite the tourism industry to travel out of the box of the economical paradigm regarding indigenous tourism, more in a context of environmental and social emergency. And we also have to consider that mutual benefits are not only on an economical level, but also a challenge to cooperate together to answer the global climate situation. And I think it's important to think deeper and to think beyond and ask ourselves the following questions. So first, why would we still travel to foreign and remote places regarding the climate crisis? Also, why would we specifically go to indigenous communities? And at last, how can we work together on protecting Mother Earth? So the research I have led has revealed a vital reason is that the main health and environmental issues are due to a lack of connection and a lack of knowledge of the ancestry and of the land. And who better than indigenous and local people can teach us to relearn a balanced relationship to the earth? So first, I would say that indigenous tourism is actually a school of life. This is a projection of what kind of tourism can offer indigenous perspective in the future. And I really think we should focus on this specificity. Because indigenous tourism through a cultural sensitive lens is really a school of life where we can support human beings in research for guidance, in research for healing, and in research for skills learning. As I said during a previous presentation, we are at the moment living a spiritual crisis and an identity crisis, and through the lens and the experiences lived within the indigenous tourism experiences, we can also learn and heal and reconnect to what is missing in our, I would say, Western lives. There is also something that is connected to indigenous tourism is that that knowledge, that teaching is restoring the knowledge of the law of origins. What is the law of origin? It's actually the natural order that is teaching the interrelations of humans and the natural world. And the natural world has rules, and we urgently need to learn them. And so indigenous people can be seen as mediator to the relearning of the rules of the natural world. And that leads to learn to be a guardian, and indigenous people are here to support us, support the Western world to relearn to be a guardian. The Western world still have guardians like peasants and people working in the traditional area connection with the land, but with specific focus on the Arctic. I think that showing the transformation of the landscapes due to climate change is an opportunity to learn on how to adapt and how to listen better to the earth. And in this way, we can encourage visitors to become protectors of the protectors. And this is the case in priority for the neighbor communities. We have an example with the Quebecois and the Atikamekw people in Quebec, who can create new links of reconciliation regarding the colonial history. And it's the best way to make peace and build a new society together. And for the others, for the foreign travelers, it's mostly to develop a new paradigm shift in their minds and hearts and bring it back home to become maybe more responsible for their own piece of land. So as Alex said, there is also linked to reciprocity. We have to work on a strong reciprocity, because tourism can be seen as a tool for leisure, escape, and so on. But I think that the future of tourism is an educative tool that doesn't have to be boring, that can also be connected to having fun together, discovering the land together, and learning to speak the language of the land together. And this is how we can also really protect the indigenous rights in the sector of tourism, and also support the knowledge keepers and support their life and their stay in the remote communities. Important thing is that stories are in the ground. It's an expression that came from an Aborigine custodian in Uluru, which is Ayers Rock in Australia. And she explained that she couldn't understand why people would climb the mountains, because this is the area of the spiritual realm for spiritual entities, and human beings don't have to. Well, they are not really welcome on some mountains, and we also have to relearn that the real stories come from the land. And the example of Uluru also showed that the climb closure happened in 2019, and operators just managed to reimagine their relationship to the place with, for example, organizing photography workshop of Uluru, and so we can reimagine this relationship with spiritual entities and sacred place without breaking the economical balance. So all of this leads to building our reconciliation with the land. And at the moment, we are working with also the invisible knowledge keeper, who are not involved in the business area traditionally. And we are talking about elders, we are talking about traditional medicine people, and also craft people, who can create and participate to a new decolonized remapping of territories. We are bringing in this way new sensitive maps, and these are incredible tools to reconnect to the invisible world that is part of environmental teaching and spiritual relationship to the land. And how do we bring this to the knowledge of the public and the travelers, is to emphasize myth, legends that come from the land. And actually it can also lead to powerful inland experiences, like getting new skills of landscape reading, observation, artistic creation that is supporting the protection of ancestral land. So very quickly, actually all of this participate to creating a new narratives for future generations. and decolonize the way we talk about our own land and relearn from the land and rebuild our identities from there. So an advice for the maybe indigenous operators who are trying to find new ways to talk about their own stories, it's to tell underground stories, to connect to their own personal story, but also to make research on connected to their elders and ancestors, to connect to the living and invisible entities, stories, and this is really incredible. And every story is unique. So, and I think it's a good way also to promote yourself. So it's important to build a strong ethical system and prepare travelers. I know we talked about the guidelines for tour operators, but preparing travelers beforehand is also essential, because we had created a conscious traveler kit with the platform Native Immersion, and we have tested it in Tanzania with the Maasai people, and we had compared the situation with people who were in the same group, who got the training, and people who didn't get the training. And the difference was absolutely huge. And it's really essential to prepare beforehand, because that can lead to a lot of abuse. And I think when we talk about cultural sensitivity, it's a must-have. So to end up with this, I wanted to talk about the travelers of the future. And actually, we have identified 3 types of travelers that we can target in terms of profiles. First, the Western travelers, people who are living in Western countries or with a Western lifestyle, and with a focus on educated women who feel an attractiveness to indigenous culture, and they want to live the most immersive, the most long and transformative experiences. And here we have a huge opportunity to educate people and to share experiences. Then you have the scientific community willing to dialogue and co-create ethical methodologies regarding adaptation towards climate change, and so specifically in the Arctic. And at last, we have other indigenous communities, because travel is not only a purpose of leisure, it's also a means of cooperation among human communities facing the global situation. And so as a conclusion, I would say that indigenous guardians, they have a holistic and sensitive approach that needs to be empowered, and this is where the new ethics in travel experiences lies, to my opinion. So if you are interested, I will give you more information, and also give you links so you can explore what is done at the moment in the field. Thank you very much, and I'm waiting for your questions if you have.
Thank you, Aureli. We agree that reimagining our relationship with the land and also reimagining our travel experiences is something that is urgently needed. And we open the floor. I can see that is Hilde. I don't know if Hilde has an old hand, but at least Håkan. Håkan, please.
Okay, yes, I have to unmute me as well. Thank you for a very interesting talk. I appreciate it a lot, and I think you actually tell something very important, which I also recognize is one of the key elements in the ARCTISEN project, and key element in this with culture sensitivity, excuse me. But and I can, as a geographer, I can also appreciate is that stories are in the ground. I think that is very much true. But how is it if you look on an ordinary tourist entrepreneur operating in Sweden, maybe not belonging to an indigenous group? What would be the guideline for such a company or such DMO, would you say?
Are you, is your question meaning, is it for an entrepreneur that is connected to indigenous tourism or not at all?
Well, I mean more an entrepreneur that might be operating in areas occupied also by indigenous group.
Mm-hmm. And who is not an indigenous person?
Yeah, perhaps not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say it really depends also on the story that the person has with the land. If the person is here for several generations, or I mean the importance of the stories are from different perspectives, and if the person is comes from has been there for a small amount of time, it's also interesting to understand why the person was called to on the land on a new maybe on a new area. So all the stories are interesting, but I would say that when we are on an ancestral land and that the custodians of the land are still there, this is important to welcome them to the table and to organize a balanced discussion. So bringing several perspectives can be interesting for that entrepreneur. Welcoming indigenous entrepreneurs in his strategy or in the tours that he is going to build. I think it's a good balance. It's fair because indigenous people need to be they need to be listened to because they are carrying a lot of important stories. So this is how I will answer your question.
Thank you. I see Brian's hand. Please, Brian.
Thanks. Is Alex still here from the first talk?
Yep. Alex still here.
Okay. Can I sneak in a question for Alex? Well, yeah. Okay. Awesome. Great. Thanks. Hey, Alex. I'm just down the 401, an hour and a half from Toronto, in Kitchener-Waterloo area. Thanks for joining us today. The question I have for you is really intrigued by the community engagement focus of the expedition and cruise industry that you're speaking to, and I think two of the big issues with the sustainability of cruise tourism in the Arctic, as I understand it, is the economic leakage. Like a lot of the majority, if not all, companies are based in the south, especially in the North American context here, and so a lot of the revenue that's generated through cruise tourism flows away from communities, and then also the seasonality, right, of the cruise industry, the cruise tourism industry, and so I'm wondering how ACO sort of squares the community engagement focus that you're focused on, and with like those big issues of seasonality and economic leakage.
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
Quick answer. I'm whispering here.
Quick answer. Yeah, I can't speak officially on behalf of ACO, but from my position at Quark and my personal opinions, is there's two remedies or two areas to focus on this. One is when recruiting local guides, we see their employment not as regional. They have skill sets that go beyond their homelands, especially with Inuit guides. You know, their ability to identify and interact with wildlife responsibly, tell stories, is applicable to other areas of our operation. So, for example, in that training program that I mentioned, we also took some of the trainees to Antarctica, and their ability to contribute was still very meaningful. With regards to the revenue and profit margins, you're right that the majority of businesses are owned by entities outside of these regions. And so for us as operators, we just need to be sensitive that we're providing adequate economic value for the time and presence that we spend in these areas, especially in community specifically. So with Quark and with the not-for-profit, we focus on making sure that the locally owned businesses are able to provide services and that they're compensated fairly and meaningfully.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, according to our program, it's time to take another break. I always wanted to do that. So, welcome back. Although the ARCTISEN project is coming to its end, the work will be continued throughout the new cluster project. So let's welcome Helena Puhakka-Tarvainen from Karelia University of Applied Sciences to tell us more. Helena is a senior project manager of the W Power project and also a part-time hotel entrepreneur. Helena, the screen is yours.
Thank you. I wish you hear and see me well, and I will share the screen to show a few slides. Please tell if it's not visible. So nice to see so many people here online to listen these exciting stories of ARCTISEN project. One anecdote I must tell, as a co-project coordinator of a sister project, that we made a so-called cross-evaluation together, and I was impressed about all the outcome that ARCTISEN was able to create during this project years. But now we will look forward, and the one way to go on is this ETRAC project, Ethical Tourism Recovery in Arctic Communities. This is funded also by Northern Periphery and Arctic Program. This is so-called cluster project. So for the next few months, we will disseminate all the results of the participating projects and get even more wide visibility for the actions done. Let's see if I managed to go to the next slide. Yes. So what is ETRAC about? As said, it's ethical tourism recovery in Arctic communities. So the partner organizations of ETRAC, which is Karelia University of Applied Sciences as a coordinator, which I represent, then Lapland University, as Monica and Emily and others represent, and then University of Highlands and Islands from Scotland. So 3 main partners, but plenty of so-called associated partners and stakeholders. So we will work with local networks, with SMEs, communities, and other relevant stakeholders. And the aim is to enable to diversify the business, work collaboratively, acquire new skills, or create new digital tourism tourism streams. Of course, all the activities are based on the outcomes of the existing projects or past projects. And when the project time is short, there's not too much time to create new, but rather deepen the existing ones. The aim is to draw upon the collective experiences of the 4 previous NPA projects, which I represent soon, share new approaches with an expanded network and of end users, and through a dynamic innovation platform. The reasoning for this project is that, as you know, that COVID has caused profound effects to the tourism sector, especially in the cool north, and this project is one way to try to overcome this. We will have online and on-site events. We will share best impact practices, and we will summarize the key development needs for future, maybe for also other project initiatives in the future. In the down of each slide, there is the project website written. So if you're more interested, you may go to the website. So this is a cluster of 4 existing or past projects. ARCTISEN is about to end soon. It's one of the four legs of this project. Then there is another tourism-related project, SHAPE, which was ended just before the COVID. It was about sustainable heritage areas, partnerships for ecotourism. Remarkable for that project was that there were basically all the UNESCO's sustainable heritage areas of the project areas involved as associated partners. I think the number was more than 30. Third project of which we benefit in ETRAC is SAINT, which was an NPA project about slow adventure in Northern Territories. And remarkable for that project is that there is, for example, a spin-off SME, which has raised from the project and is still existing. And the fourth one is the W Power, which is a project led by myself. It has been about empowering women entrepreneurs in sparsely populated communities, and it will also end this year. And it is not directly tourism related project, but as you know, many women are working, or many women entrepreneurs are working in tourism or tourism related sectors, and vice versa. Many entrepreneurs in tourism related sectors are women. There are totally 3 work packages of actions which we are about to implement. Work package 1 is strongly ongoing. It is about partner perspectives on COVID impacts and recovery strategies. There will be acknowledged exchange on COVID impacts, which are challenges and opportunities, and the outcome will be a report. And as we had the project kickoff earlier this month, there was a workshop where the results for this were collected. I think there were almost 40 participants, many of you also. That was excellent, thank you. Also, there will be a survey released in these days, which we hope many of you would answer. Another outcome of this work package is the joint strategy for ethical and sustainable tourism recovery post-COVID. So giving and creating guidelines for everybody in tourism sector, how we could make tourism more sustainably in post-COVID situation. Second work package is about creating the platform for open training and innovation. So this benefits the e-service created in the SHAPE project earlier. It's so-called web-based platform. I don't know the technical details, but website basically, portal. And the aim is to collect all the resources developed by partners of these 4 past projects in the one place. It will include training and coaching models, for example, and there will be also a competence matrix from which you can find the most suitable courses for each target group. And also there will be some open innovation support. We hope to launch this e-service maybe early next year. It's end of October now, so I'm not so optimistic to finish it yet this year. So early next year, and there will be then some trainings to represent the outcome. And basically work package 3 is about expanding the network and to reach the project outputs. And this is led by our colleagues in Lapland, so Monica and others. At the moment, we are doing a stakeholder mapping. We are trying to figure out who are the key stakeholders in this field, to whom we should share the information. This work package is responsible of organizing virtual guided tours for this training and innovation platform, which was explained a minute ago. And also a lot of online networking events will take place, like transnational thematic online benchmarking and networking events, online speed date networking event, and then, which might interest you the most, together with our Canadian associated partners, there will be organized an online Rovaniemi, which is a gathering of Indigenous women entrepreneurs. We have associated partners from New Brunswick, Canada, who organize similar activities locally, and our aim is to make it now transnational. So what comes next? The project will run until the end of June next year. Put to your calendar already 15th of November, there will be the first webinar taking place with a theme, Stories of Hope and Visions for the Future. Then there will be hopefully 2 on-site meetings, another one in Finland in January or February next year, and another one in Scotland, May or June next year. So we really hope also to see people face to face and gather together to work on these themes. And as mentioned, the e-platform will be opened soon and informed to you all. So please follow our website, and we will of course share also the things in the existing social media, for example, the ARCTISEN social media also post-project. If you want to know more about this project, you may of course contact Monica, but there is also my contact details, and that will be found also from the website etroc.internet/npa.eu. So thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Helena, for telling us about Artisan's afterlife and the ways to further enhance culturally sensitive tourism development together. So now it's the last chance for everyone to post or actually fire away with all your questions and comments that we could not discuss before. So the floor is open, and we will keep track of the chat, and or you can raise your hand if you have a question.
Yes, I just wanted to say, just share a little anecdote, because as some of you that are project partners will know, it has been difficult to work with the concept of cultural sensitivity with some of the stakeholders, for instance, in Greenland, which has been my kind of area of responsibility. But the other day I was contacted by a young woman who was studying journalism in Greenland, and she was doing an assignment on some community tourism development in Kapisiflit. And so she was talking about this and referring to, oh, I wonder if this is the concept, if this is, you know, what it means. What you've been working with on cultural sensitivity. So I didn't know that she had learned about the project, but she actually had, and she knew about ARCTISEN, and we discussed, you know, and she said, oh, is this what it is? So I just wanted to share that. To me, that was really a relief. It's like you teach, I don't know if you teach math, and then at the end the students say, is it that easy? It's really complex, so I'm not saying it's easy, but it also shows that there is definitely also some things on the ground that can be done also in quite simple but impactful ways. So that was just to share a little story to say that the journey continues, but that there is lots of hope for this kind of culturally sensitive tourism. Yeah, so thank you very much everyone for collaborating. I think it's been a true pleasure and I really learned a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Karina, for sharing your anecdote. Hilde, yeah. Please.
Well, I thought we were just like finishing up. So I just wanted to say that it's been a pleasure to work with you all. I wish that we've managed to do the benchmarking trips, because I really think the project would have had another outcome. But still, I think that we have managed quite well. For my part, it's been a pleasure to get to know so many people. I would also like to thank Randy and Elsbeth. They have been really valuable in the last parts of the project in managing to do all these digital events, which takes a lot of time and effort. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Karina and Hilde and everybody else for being here today and for discussing cultural sensitivity. We're reaching the end now of the seminar, and even though the ARCTISEN project is ending soon, all these discussions and presentations show that cultural sensitivity remains an important subject in tourism and beyond. So that's why our work and our culturally sensitive mindsets will continue to live on. We'll bring that with us. And as a great bonus, we also got to meet and work with so many inspiring and amazing people that we're all really grateful for. So thank you. And I think now we're gonna raise our glasses.
No, not yet. No. We want to. I want to speak.
Whoa, wait.
What? It's my turn. So. So what we want to say that we hope to stay in touch and continue to explore the questions of cultural sensitivity in the future. So let's send whatever, postcards, fax, emails, Facebook messages, and call, and actually visit each other, because we can do it now, hopefully. So really, let's stay in touch. I think we have a nice picture of, yes, that's discussing in a cultural sensitive manner.
Yeah.
We want to say a million thanks to all of you who have been part of the ARCTISEN journey. We want to say warm thanks to our technical wizard, Samuli Valkama, who has made this event possible and supported us in a very nice way. Then we want to also send special thanks and hugs to Outi Kukapi, our previous project manager, for taking such a good care of us. And of course, billion thanks to Monica.
Okay, thank you, Emily, Randy, and Elsbeth for the excellent show. You are a brilliant team, and I am really happy that I have had the chance to work with you. It has been a real pleasure. I want to thank also all ARCTISEN project partners and associated partners for this journey together. This could never have been possible without you. It has been really great to work with you, and I hope our collaboration will continue also in the future. I have learned so much from you. Thank you also to all of you others who have participated in the project activities or otherwise contributed to or followed the project. Together we can change the Arctic and the world. Although the project is ending now, the work will continue and spread the word. Be part of the change. Thank you.
Yes, so this was today's program. Thank you very much. Let's say bye together. We're joining around the campfire here, all of us. So thanks for joining. And I think it's time to cheers together and maybe unmute your
Yes.
microphones and show your face if you want to, and then we can have a little cheers together. And
Cheers
on
in
your
a
way
cup of
out.
tea. Not very festive.
Sorry, but for now,
I think we were supposed to. We have practiced this. Are you ready now? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
No,
Let's raise our
hippies.
glass.
Yes, hippies.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Were
See
there
you soon
fireworks
out there.
Yes, that was supposed to.
Thank you. Hope to meet you soon again.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.